Good evening. I'm not sure who we'll have tonight, if we have anybody. I may be talking to myself tonight, but I'll probably talk anyway. Sometimes you got to talk and get things out of your system. Hi, Lori Jean Carlson. So good to see you. Glad you made it. I was thinking I might not have many. Hey, Cherie. Welcome. Thanks for coming tonight. I hope you're both well. You awake? You awake? Not really. Eddie's laying here, both eyes closed. Oh, you're about to go to bed. Well, I bet you have to work tomorrow, Cherie. I should, I'm glad you're here, but you might not want to. Well, hey, Carol, I didn't even see you pop in there. You jumped in between two other ones, and I said, sorry you're not feeling good. I'm not feeling great, to be honest. But glad you felt like making it or made the effort. That means a lot. I appreciate that. I hope you're not coming down with COVID or something. Oh, you're not like, well, okay. Well, that's good, Cherie. I mean, I hope that's good. I mean, it means you get some time off to get some rest or sleep in the morning. Well, that's how most of I'm on. That's what retirement's like for me. I'm just staying at home all the time. I was going to wait just a few minutes and see if anybody else showed up. Ah, okay. Well, that's good, actually. Well, hi, Miss Brenda. Welcome in. I don't know who saw Monarch Moments yesterday, but that was a little strange, wasn't it? So, I mean, seemed like they had I wouldn't call her a fan or a stalker, but she was definitely targeting on them, or seemed to be. We had to on out. We've been this lately. Today we had to go out to the feed the grand cats and the grand chickens. Our daughter's in Washington D.C. this weekend. Yeah, I hope everybody feels better. It's allergy season down this way, Lori Jean. I don't know where you're at, but in Tennessee, it spring is season for sure. Yeah, it's Cherie. While they were live streaming, they were in a small town, I guess Campbell, California, and there was a lady wandering the streets there. I guess she had been there. Somebody at a cafe told them that she had been there. You're in California, okay? North or south? Yeah, it was towards the end of the show. I mean, she was there beforehand, but I guess it was. Well, speaking of the devil, there's one of them. Although he wasn't there. Hi, Garrett. Oh, Cherie, don't show him so much love. You give him a big head. He starts, taking it all, in. Uh-oh, I froze there. I am. Northern California. That's a place I've always wanted to come see, if not live there. She is, and I don't want her taken advantage of by you, Garrett. Yeah, if Michelle and Hannah recovered from their adventures in Campbell. Hopefully not none worse the wear. Well, Sheree, I'm not sure how much that's saying about your friends, but okay. Garrett's all right for a guy that stays hidden all the time. It really makes me wonder if he's hidden because his face is on it down at the post office or something. And Miss Hannah's knee, it looked like a pretty stout brace she had on. That's kind of what I need. Okay, I'll be nice, Sheree. I'll be nice because you've asked me to. If he asked me, I might not, but since it's you, I will. Let's see, it's 10:07. I'll wait 3 more minutes. Yeah, that's what I heard. That's what I heard Michelle say. Our invisible friend. Well, if he's an invisible friend, Carol, does that mean he really exists? I see a children's book coming. Garrett, the Invisible Friend. That'll be great for ages kindergarten through 4 or something. And at the end of the book, we have a big reveal. Yeah, I do. I hope it helps. I need a new one. Mine is not. Mine is stretched out or something. Mine is not. I'm not getting enough support out of mine right now. Well, it could just be that my knee is getting way too. That the knee is getting way too sloppy for a brace. I don't know. Hey, Rhonda, welcome in. Good evening. Are you guys getting stormy weather in your neck of the woods? We've had a fair bit of rain, but it hasn't stormed much here. Excuse me. Okay, where's the mic? Oh, hey, Mike. Missed you coming in too. Mike, do I have your Instagram? Have we ever corresponded? Well, we have, I think. I need to ask you a question. I'll ask it. I'll send you a note later. And if I don't, If you don't see anything today, look tomorrow because I might forget. We had some rain earlier, no idea about this evening. Oh, I know there was some stuff coming up, but I don't know if it may have already passed through your area. We were getting a lot of bad thunderstorm and tornado issues earlier in our car. It has a weather update, and most of them weren't right here. They were in counties. Most of them are counties to the north of us, but I wasn't sure about the south down your way. So anyway, I hope not. Sometimes I think we've all had enough bad weather for a while. I think we've had enough tornadoes to do most of us for, at least a couple of years. Hey, John, welcome in. How are you, sir? And are you still in Cape Cod? I don't ever know if I should just look into the camera or look at the chat. I'll probably look at the chat because that way if I look at the camera, I can't keep up with what's going on. And then that makes me seem very rude. Well, maybe I don't know. You guys may need rain too, but I mean, we needed some. I don't know if we needed as much as we got, although it won't hurt if it doesn't get too crazy. Got home today. Well, did you end up catching many fish? I know you said you caught a few. I'm definitely behind 36 bass. What was the biggest one, John? Oh, you are, Cherie. I didn't see that. Well, I hope it doesn't get too bad over your way. I saw that it was moving across. That's why I wondered if Rhonda was getting some. But oh, what kind of? I'm assuming that's a dog, not your wife or a daughter, Mike. Well, you guys are outrunning me tonight. I can't keep up. Could be a goat. Oh, you mean flapping its ears? Well, it could be. Oh, cool. Is it full of teeth? I've never found a shark jaw on the beach. Well, let me pour out a little more coffee. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I have a fairly serious topic to talk about. If you saw my thumbnail, you know that. But I'm also in a fair bit of pain tonight. So if I have to cut it off early, that's why. But I hope not. But if you see me wiggling in my chair a lot, you'll know I'm trying to find a comfortable spot to sit. I hate to say my butt's hurting, but my butt hurts. I've got one of my torn muscles is up in my glute, that left glute, and it sometimes here lately it's been giving me a fit. You do that, Cherie. Thank you. Thanks for coming by. Hey, Francisco. Good evening. I've got 3 Californians on here tonight. Hot dog, and one pretty far west Canadian. Oh, Mike, you got to go? All right, well, count that Canadian out then. Thanks for stopping in, Mike. I hate you got to go. I'd like to have gotten your opinion. But I also know it's late and people have to go to work. Everybody can't be retired yet. Oh, just when I start to say I've got something serious to talk about, everybody starts leaving. What do you have? Do you have token Eastern and Western Canadian friends too, Rhonda? Just curious. I used to know a few people that lived in Canada, but I haven't met or seen anybody from in a long time. They were mostly airplane people. It was interesting. I've met people from Canada and Africa and I think France, maybe in England, all in the airplane business. Oh, and Australia. Ah, good. Well, I know some people that live in Toronto or, well, do or did. And I don't know about Vancouver. I have to think about that for a minute. Well, it could be, Rhonda, that mid Canada is just so far away from everything that maybe they don't have good internet. There's some wide open spaces in part of Canada where those guys where I can't think Diana and Mike live. Mark, you guys have met my buddy Mark. He lives in western Wyoming, and it's just about as barren there. Not many people there. I think he said there's 92 people who live in the town he lives in, and then after that, it gets pretty scarce. They get pretty thin after that. Okay, I'm gonna go. I don't know, if, not go, but start. I don't know if anybody's going to, is going to leave or come in, but I got something to talk about, and I'm going to get it off my chest, so to speak. And I'm not here to find answers necessarily, but I am. If you have an opinion, I expect to hear it. I don't expect any arguments or fights. And I'm not trying to come up with. I don't know that I'm coming up with an answer, but well, no, I'm not coming up with an answer. I wouldn't dare think myself that, but I'm going to talk about it because once again, we find ourselves sending thoughts and prayers to another little town in the United States where we've had a major school shooting, and I will pull the numbers up for a moment. Not that we need to hear them necessarily; they're probably in everybody's, probably burned in everybody's memory. But 3 days ago we lost 19 more school kids and 2 more teachers, and it goes on and on. I was just looking at some statistics, and between April 20th, 1999, and that's when, if you don't know, that's when Columbine shooting in Colorado happened, until the end of 2021, not counting anything that's happened this year, more than 311,000 school children must now live with the experience of school shooting in their memories. That's how many children were at all the schools where there's been school shootings since 1999. And of those, at least 185 of their classmates were killed, and another 369 were wounded. In 2022 alone, the U.S. has experienced more than 200 mass shootings already. Not all school shootings, but mass shootings. That's a lot. That's a lot. and that's counting more than one. Mass shootings, I believe, for it to get listed in statistic as a mass shooting, there have to be at least 4 or 5 people injured or wounded or killed. I wanted to pull up a top 4 because the one that really hit me the hardest first was Columbine. That wasn't the first school shooting we ever had in this country, but it was the first large one, at least that we know of. And in Columbine happened on, like I said, April 20th, 1999, and of course was the largest for a while, but it's now been surpassed by Sandy Hook, where 26 died. That's the most. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, February 14th, 2018, 17 dead. And then this week, May 24th, 21 dead. And then you throw in grocery stores and synagogues and Laguna Woods Geneva Presbyterian Church, Walmart in El Paso, Collierville, Tennessee, a Kroger, was 12 people were injured and 2 killed in my home state. Now, it's not a rant to say that guns have got to go or we've got to, but that's the only answer, because I don't know what the answer is. But it's sad, and I'm a somber bear tonight because it really bothers me. I mean, it I believe I have heard that, Garrett, and I think that's not the first time. I think you'll find that teachers have stepped in front of their children several times and died because of it. But yeah, I can see that. I think I've met a few teachers that were that way in my life, honestly. I've also had a few that probably wouldn't, but that's another story. You know, everything. What drives me crazy is ever since Columbine, we've been so split in this country on what to do, what not to do, what would work, what won't work. Not to get too political, but I watched this morning or watched earlier the press getting in the faces of several Texas congressmen, senators, governor, and ask them what do they make of this or what do they think, and they always say the same thing: it's not the guns, it's a deranged killer. It's some, it's a crazy man, it's a crazy person. And actually I can pretty much say crazy man because almost all of these major events are usually done by men or boys, and I think that's a pretty startling statistic too. Well, I may have to ask you to explain more of that. I mean, I agree, Garrett, but if there, for some reason, I know what the no-win scenario for leadership, how you go down with honor. Okay. I knew I'd seen that before, but I didn't know, exactly how you would translate that. But anyway, again and again, we hear the same politicians say, "Oh, gun laws won't work. We don't need more. We've got too many now, and they don't work, and we're not." And then the NRA comes up, and they made a statement today too, or yesterday, that they're really sorry for the people in Uvalde, and really regret that this happened. But again, it's not their fault because this is a deranged killer who got slipped through the cracks. And the thing is, oh, that was a James Kirk thing. Okay, that's why I've heard of it. Anyway, and they slipped through the cracks, and that's what we got to fix. And somebody went so far as to say that there's a mental health problem in mid Texas where this happened, but that's not true, because if that's the case, then we've got mental health problems all over the country, which I do think is a problem. It may very well be a big part of the problem. I mean, I don't want to say that we got to be touchy-feely with every human in the country, but obviously there's people slipping through the cracks. And at the same time, we've got people up in arms saying ban all guns and do this, and I don't think that's an answer either right now, to be honest, because there's too many of them, and there's no way you're ever going to get them all. Let's see what Rhonda has to say. Why can't it do? Why won't it let me do that? Mental health help is impossible to get until it's too late. Yeah, I think they're right, Rhonda. I think it is more than often. How to say that? More often than not, it is too late when you finally can get some help. People don't want to pay any attention until something like this happens, and then suddenly they have everybody wants to cry they should have gotten help. Where was everybody at when they needed help? And why didn't somebody do something before now? The fact that he could just go buy a semi-auto at the local store is crazy to me. You need a background check to volunteer as a That's part of what drives me crazy, Carol. And here's the thing that really bothers me. I was ghosted 3 times trying to get therapy and then told, so sorry, can't make any more appointments. Okay, I'm sorry to hear that, Rhonda. Carol's got a point here that I'm kind of getting around to, and one of the things that drives me absolutely bananas is we have to have all kinds of licenses in this country to drive a car, ride a motorcycle, and do other things, but we don't have to have one to buy any kind of gun. Now, I grew up in a rural environment. Tennessee is wide open, almost probably not as wide open as Texas, but pretty wide open. I mean, everybody I knew had a shotgun or a 22 rifle behind the door and went squirrel hunting, rabbit hunted, deer hunted, had a 30-30 somewhere. And that was, it didn't seem dangerous. I mean, you didn't hear very often of somebody dying or getting shot by just, your average Joe Blow. And back then, if I recall correctly, to get a fully automatic weapon, at least, you could do that if you paid a lot of money and got all the licenses and were checked out and were approved as a collector. But people just didn't go down to the gun store and pick up assault rifles. If we're going to have them, I think we do need some kind of checks and balances. And that's again, that's the thing that drives me crazy when I hear politicians say, well, nobody, that's not the gun's fault. It's that we have too many laws now. We're not enforcing them. Because every time they try to go and enforce them, then that same group of people turns around and yells foul that they're enforcing the laws. And they don't want to do anything about it. And I want to slam my fist down and say, okay, we don't want to do that and you don't want to do this, but can we not sit down at the damn table and at least talk face to face and figure out what might help? I don't believe we're going to get rid of all the guns in this country. They're too embedded in the culture of the United States. And there's too many out there to ever find them all, much less collect them all. And you would probably have a revolution on your hands. But we've got to do something about, and it's not just about assault rifles either. That's assault rifles, black rifles, military surplus. That gets a lot of blame for a lot of things, and it does certainly facilitate the situation. I mean, you don't get 30-round magazines in your local in your squirrel rifle or your shotgun that you take turkey hunting. And, this kid was allowed to buy multiple 30-round magazines. I don't know how many he had. Two assault rifles within a week or two of each other. No, and no red flags flew up in that. I mean, somebody should have thought that's 2 pretty quick. And then he bought 375 rounds of ammo, which, if he was just going to the range to shoot, I could see maybe doing that. But why did he go buy 2 rifles? And what did he need 2 for within that short amount of time? He sure as hell didn't wear one out. And I'm going to apologize for my language up front, because if I say something that I offend people, please let me know, and I'll apologize personally. But right now my brain is working in a different mode, I think. Let me see here. Let me catch up on chat here a little bit. Call center jobs where I had to get back. Yeah, I mean, exactly. Once California, both ammo and guns, you have to get a background check. See, and I've bought guns in this state, and I bought one not terribly long ago, within the last couple of years. Not an assault rifle, but I had to have a check, and I don't know what that check involves. I don't know how deep they look into my past, but they're just talking about trying to get a nationwide check on everything for everybody to do that, and they don't want to do it. They don't want to even do that, and that's when it starts to drive me crazy. I tell you what I think's going to happen. I think the kids of Columbine are grown. The kids at Marjorie Douglas are growing. These kids from Uvalde Elementary School in Texas are going to grow up, and they're all going to remember this stuff, and they're all going to start voting and running for office and becoming the leaders of this country. And down the road, the NRA and the gun owners that won't talk about any kind of working together now are going to find themselves against a whole bunch of grown-up kids that saw their fellow students die in a classroom, and they're going to say, to hell with this, we're getting rid of everything. And they're going to, pardon the expression, shoot them. The NRA and their ilk is going to shoot themselves in the foot. I agree, Garrett. I mean, it's really that simple. Easily gotten in a car and plowed a bunch of children down. We find creative ways to kill when we get when well motivated. That's true, unfortunately. And I was an NRA member for years. I've probably said this before. Yeah, we've learned to not give an inch. I don't know who I blame for that in this country, because, as it was once stated, one of the reasons we had a civil war, besides the fact that we allowed slavery in the country from the get-go, was because we forgot how to compromise and work together. And that's where we're at again now. Nobody is willing to work together, because everybody's afraid to give even an inch. And it's based on this conception that if you give an inch, you automatically are going to lose everything. Not just take a step or two back, but everything. And that's what they tell people. That's every year somebody runs for office, you hear about any kind of gun law restriction. What you hear is, you let them get by with this, and the next thing you know, the Second Amendment will be abolished from the Constitution. And I think we've got to learn. It's got to start somewhere else. I mean, both sides have got to learn to give an inch. The anti-gun lobby is going to have to realize that the guns aren't in themselves evil. They already know there's a mental health issue. They would probably readily go for doing something with that too. Just like the other side has to learn that all these guns aren't good for being in the wrong hands. And it's frustrating. And like I said, I don't have the answer, but I know if we don't start talking about it, if the two main opposing factions don't get together, if the NRA, as a political power, and they have clout on that side of the voting line, if they don't step up and talk to the other side and try to work something out, or find some middle ground where they can at least say hi to each other and let's have a cup of coffee. We're not going to fix any of this. There's Tina. And Tina, I feel like that's what a lot of people are taught and a lot of people say. But honestly, in my lifetime, I've not found that to be entirely true. Again, I don't know everything. NRA is a shell of what it was, Tim. It's not them. Well, I agree, Tina. I agree 100% because when I joined the NRA, it was not what it is today, and that's the reason I don't belong anymore. I was so upset by Columbine that I left the NRA, not because of exactly what happened, but because the NRA had an opportunity to step up and help with the problem in hand, with the situations that made Columbine possible, and they absolutely refused. Hey, Tony. Oh, well, there is a lot of money, and that's another thing about it. There is a lot of money. We've heard all this in the last 4 years about they're going to take, we've had this run on guns and ammo in the last 4 years, 5, that's been the greatest in history. On one hand, you got gun manufacturers and ammo and gun rights people saying that, oh, we're not going to be able to get anything. We can't get anything. On the other hand, we've got manufacturers who are just absolutely rolling in the dough because they've never made so much money. Well, the NRA used to be about gun safety and legal use of guns. It wasn't all about assault rifles and black rifles. You picked up an issue. What you saw in there were articles about target shooting and target matches, hunting rifles, hunting shotguns, and that sort of thing. And probably some self-defense type stuff thrown in there. But it wasn't all about, who's got the next best assault rifle. What's the next greatest black rifle to stick in your closet? And that's become such a cliche thing. I mean, it's almost a status symbol for people to have these so-called black rifles. And that just basically means military style stuff. When I grew up, a military rifle was something that your dad carried in the Army, and maybe he's got one under the bed or in the closet that he brought home or has now because it meant something to him when he was in the war, or he brought home from Germany after the war. And that's a whole different thing than having a closet full of AKs or ARs. And I'm not totally against some of that stuff from a collector's perspective. I've shot all of those rifles at one time or another, and I find them interesting to study and look at and shoot at a target. But to have so many of them out there and for them to be on the streets amongst gang members or just high school kids that are able to walk in and pick one up, you ought to at least have to be 21. And I mean, we can't drink in this country till we're 21, but damn it, we can go buy any kind of gun and go in and shoot up our classmates. I mean, come on. We got to talk about that just a little bit. Yeah, now they want to talk about protecting ghost guns, Tony, and I agree. I think that's the worst thing they could be doing. No, AR doesn't stand for assault rifle. AR, I don't even know what it stands for, but it's a Colt. Actually, an AR-15 was a Colt product. Colt Firearms created the AR-15 for military going into Vietnam in the 1960s and 70s. Prior to that, we carried M1s and M14s. That's what I have a friend that was in the Marines. Did 2 hitches in Vietnam. The first time he was there, he carried an M14, and the second time they were there, they carried him. They tried to give him M16s. Most of them wouldn't carry them. They weren't. Yeah, Armalite Rifle Company. Thank you, Tony. But Colt was the main money thing, or at least the very first ones I ever saw were made by Colt. And they're not made. AR didn't have anything. The reason I say AR is that style of rifle now is one of the most popular styles and brands. And if you look in any magazine and read about them, they're referred to as AR style rifles because they're made like the AR-15 was. M16 and AR-15 are one and the same. AR-15 used to be the semi-automatic civilian version, if you will, and an M16 was the fully auto selective fire military version. But they were, in essence, one and the same, just a few different parts. And I've shot both of them. I've shot ARs. They're pretty accurate. Most of them are anyway. But I'm not really in here just to talk about that. We've got to do something about more checks. No, that's part of it, Tina. That is part of it. I'll agree. AK-40. You know what? I knew people that were in Vietnam that threw their AR-15s in the mud and picked up AK-47s from the North Vietnamese soldiers because they didn't trust the AR-15 back then. Now they fixed a lot of that, but if you want to go to war with something that's going to work when you drop it in the mud puddle and pick it up and run it through the creek, an AK-47 is probably the gun for you. But it is heavier. It's a little different. Not as common. Well, they're expensive, but they're cheap in comparison. Let's see here. I don't want to lose my place. Well, that's true too, Tony. I don't think you're far off the mark there. But again, I'm not here to say it's just the rifle. It's not the style of rifle. It's not completely the problem. I mean, I wish I could afford to collect some ex-military stuff, but most of it would be older, World War I, World War II, that kind of stuff. I'm much more interested in that sort of thing when it comes to firearms than I am AR-15s and the like. But that's just me, and I'd rather have an old single shot squirrel rifle than I would just about anything else in the world. But that's me. But if we don't figure out a way to talk about it, if we can't ever figure out a way to get these people to the table, politicians, business people, the people who are selling the guns, the ammunition, and the people who are supporting them, if you will, by the NRA. I was going to say something a minute ago, and I realized I got sidetracked. The AK-47 is probably the most reliable. Yes, they probably are, Tony. It's because they're made. They have such loose tolerances and things, and they were made for that. AKs were. They were designed to be that way. They were cheap. They're cheaper made than an AR-15. They're just full of sheet metal and big old springs, and they work. I've taken one apart, and inside them, compared to an AR-15, an AR-15 looks kind of like a Swiss watch inside, and an AK-47 looks more like a John Deere Reaper or something. It's made to take abuse and just keep going. Here in New York, you can't even use a gun in self-defense. They try to say you don't need an AR-15 to hunt, and I say I don't want a gun to hunt. I want one to defend myself. So in New York State, Tina, you guys don't have any kind of self-defense. I'd have to look that up, and I will admit I'm not a astute scholar of every state's laws. I have looked at some, but in this part of the country, at least, if somebody's in your house and you shoot them, you are protected as a self-defense measure. Yeah, an AK is heavier because it's wooden, and that you're right there. Absolutely. Anyway, what I was going to say was I was in the NRA. I was for quite a few years, and I thought the NRA was a good thing. Even then, because after 1968, when they started banning things like Saturday night specials, the NRA was already starting their their promotions about protecting the Second Amendment rights and all that. But they were still primarily involved in things like gun safety. And if you're going to have guns in the home, how to store them properly, to teach your children what to and not do, and things like that. And they while that still may be in the background, that's not their sole purpose anymore. It pretty much seems that their sole purpose is to lobby and be political. And if you look at how they spend their money, it shows up. And of course, they've been in trouble for the last several years for, lavishly spending a lot of those funds on themselves, which is not very good either. Yeah, and that's not, it's not necessarily as wide open here as, say, Florida was. Their stand your ground law got a little bit open, and there's been several killings, shootings down where people have tried to use that for an excuse. Not always worked out, but let's see what Tina said. There's actually a Supreme Court case being debated right now about New York State's gun. That's interesting, Tina. Is that in the New York Supreme Court or the federal court? I'll have to look that up. I haven't heard that. But again, back to the original, or some of the original. But anyway, I got out in Columbine because one of the big things that came up during Columbine was that those boys got their weapons through a girl that they knew or somebody who could go into, because I don't even think they were 18. And she would go into gun shows, and she was able to buy guns at gun shows and then bring them out, and they bought them for her or whatever. And what they were saying, how she got them, was she wasn't going through checks or anything, because there is a law in this country that says if you and I, Tony, let's say you and I meet up and we're buddies, we hunt together something, and I've got a pistol and you want it, and I agree to sell it to you. We don't have to do any paperwork, at least not in most of the country. I'm not going to say that's the way it is in California because I don't know, but it is back here. And it used to be that way pretty much everywhere. We don't have to do the paperwork, let's put it that way, because we weren't licensed dealers to sell new. That wasn't our purpose. That law or that concept wasn't so I could become a under the cover gun store. It was just because that's just how it worked amongst general citizens. We weren't actually there for that. But what would go on at gun shows, and I used to go to a lot of them, was, you and I might be walking around in the gun show and meet each other there, and I might have a shotgun over my shoulder with a for sale sign on it, and you and I might make a deal right there between the rows, the tables, and you might buy my shotgun. What got bad about that, and this came up during Columbine, was that some people were doing that on a larger scale. They were actually setting up tables within the gun show. They weren't licensed dealers. They were individuals who had these guns to sell, and they were selling across the table just as one guy to another. And that's basically how the Columbine kids got their guns. And they knew that was going on. That was going on when I used to go to gun shows, and people knew it was going on, and it still happened. And when it came out, the NRA would not even back asking gun shows to, if you had a table to sell guns, you had to at least be a licensed dealer. I mean, they wouldn't even do anything about that. They refused to even go there because they were scared to death they were going to lose something. And that's basically when I left the NRA, because I felt like that was an inch we could have given. They weren't shutting down gun shows. They just wanted to try to keep people who didn't have to keep records from selling so many guns to anybody who walked into a show. And if they say that wasn't happening, that's a damn lie, because I saw it happen. I know people that did stuff like that, and I know of people that did stuff like that. What's Tony got to say here? I need to catch my breath. Second Amendment and what they are doing now to protect certain things are two completely different things. I don't believe having guns and the recent violence are two and the same. No, I don't. I agree with that, Tony. They're not the same, and that's why I say it's not. I agree. It's not all about new gun laws. That's not going to fix it. The old adage used to be, we're not enforcing the laws we got now. So if we're not going to enforce what we got now, why put any more out there? It won't do any good. My question is, why don't we try to enforce more of them? Do some more things that would help this, and not come down with the sledgehammer. I think the sledgehammer is going to get here when all these kids grow up. All these kids who were traumatized in the third grade when they saw half their classmates mowed down in their classroom, and they grow up to say, I'm not going to see my kids go through this. And there's a lot of them out there, and there's going to be even more. And even the ones that don't go through it suffer from it. I mean, I know people who've told me their kids are afraid to go to school because such and such shooting happened last week, and it's all over the news, so everybody hears about it, unless you can protect your kids from it. Tina says yes, but no background check would have stopped that. There's an FBI background check before you buy a gun anywhere in the U.S. That's what I say, Tina, but I don't understand why. So that's why I don't understand why the NRA is so against background checks. A universal background check, to me, could help some of these things. And I thought there was one. And I got checked when I bought a gun. So if that's not a universal background check, I'd like to know what it is. But there are some states that don't seem to even require that. Texas, I'll be honest with you, Texas is so wide open about guns that they have actually voted out a lot of their laws that were on the books to try to stem some of this. And now they have reenacted new laws or taken those laws off the books. Texas is an open carry state. Anybody and their brother, if you want a firearm in Texas, you can strap it to your hip and carry it. I mean, it's wide open, which several of the western states are. But Texas has been that way as long as I can remember. Let me see what Garrett's got to offer here. So Tim, what do you think is a good way to get the people who support no gun laws to expect some reasonable laws? You know some people who are ultra pro-gun owners. How would you do it? Well, that's a good question, Garrett. I don't know. I'm not sure I know, but sometimes I'm the kind of person that says we ought to take them at gunpoint and herd them all into a boxcar and shut the door with the other side. And, not let them get out of there till they sit down and talk about it. I don't know the answer. I know that if I was in a position to do so, I would gladly go speak and ask them to. It's been a long week. See you Saturday, buddy. Good night, everybody. Good night, John. Thanks for coming in. Look forward to seeing you on Saturday. I'm not sure what we're going to talk about yet. Mark's not going to be here, so I'll be on my own again. We'll just have to see what I come up with. So I would like to see. I don't know how you go. I think you go directly to the leaders of both parties or both sides. I don't know who I would bring in on the anti-gun side. I don't know, and I'd have to research that. But there are people within the gun lobby that you could start talking to, and maybe that's not the answer. Maybe the answer is to start on the bottom fringes and work your way back up. Maybe the top's not the place to start. Maybe it's the bottom. Maybe the idea is to try to get people on the bottom of the pyramid to start climbing the pyramid up and feeding the groundswell and see if you can't get some kind of a groundswell to stop some of these things. You have to sit down at a table and talk and talk and talk. Yeah, I agree, Brenda. That's what you'd have to do. Ohio now has concealed carry without any credentials. Open carry is one thing, but concealed is scary. Well, Tennessee was a concealed carry state. You could get a license, which never entirely made sense. You could get a license to carry one concealed, but they didn't want you carrying one open. now there's something going around, and I think they have it in this state. It's now called a constitutional carry law, and purely constitutional carry means pretty much anybody can carry one, whether you've got a gun permit or not. I will say this: if you do carry in Tennessee, you are supposed to go through a certified instructor and go through classes about it, and at least know ramifications of doing so, and know how to shoot the gun, and know how to safely take care of the gun, and not just blow your own foot off. But now you can carry either way. I mean, I believe I could carry in this state now. I think I could carry in this state whether I've got a permit or not. I think that's what it's come down to, which is a knee-jerk reaction by the one side to try to flaunt it in the face of the other side and say, ha, 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 see, we got it wide ass open. Now you didn't like it before. Now what do you think? Which is the wrong way to go about it. There is one thing, though, Tony, about concealed weapons, is they are a little less intimidating in general living, general life. You're not walking around checking out everybody's hip or seeing what's stuck in the back of their belt. I actually used to think that, well, you said that, and I don't know if I agree with that anymore. I mean, I'm not saying I disagree with it. I'm not sure which is worse or if there's that much difference. Until mental illness information is available on background checks, anybody should be able to get one. Explain that, Tina. I think I know what you mean, but I don't want to misinterpret. You know what, Rhonda? I wouldn't doubt that. There's a lot of things HIPAA doesn't actually do that people think it does, but it gets thrown out there a lot. Well, I think when you get right down to it, we find out that, Tina, that's the case in a lot of counties because they don't want to pay for it. No instruction, no permit in Ohio. It also puts law enforcement in jeopardy because it's also attached to your registration and must verbally report upon contact with law enforcement. Not anymore. Yeah, it used to be. I know in a lot of states where they had carry, or you can carry in your car. In a lot of states, you are allowed actually to have one in your car. And I was always told that if you did, you should if you get pulled over, you should let the officer know you do have a gun in the car. And if he asks you to lay it on the dash or something so he can see it, then so be it. But I've been told more recently that you shouldn't say anything about it. So I don't really know I'm not sure how I feel about that. Either way. Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't laugh. This is a serious topic. But Rhonda, I haven't seen your passport, Rhonda, but I will keep my eyes open for it, okay? If any sick, let me see here, Tina. Let me put that up. If any sick or evil person who's going to go shoot at me, I should be allowed to gun more rounds than he has. Yeah, well, I'm not sure about the more rounds than he has. You might have to carry an ammo vest to have all the rounds. Some of these guys got. I mean, this kid they've talked about him having tactical gear. What he was wearing was tactical gear in the sense of he had places to strap on ammunition, extra magazines, clips, and carry extra rounds with him. He actually didn't have body armor on, and I figured he would have a bulletproof vest on, but he didn't. They said he was just wearing vests where he could carry the ammo and whatever else he had with him. And I've not actually heard if he actually had both rifles with him. I'm not sure I would want to have carried both, but he may have had one strapped on his back. I'm not sure about that. And the reason I say that is, I wouldn't necessarily want to have one hanging over your shoulder while you're trying to maneuver with the other one. I would think would be in your way. You want to come online? You want to say hi? Come here. Oh. Teddy says he thinks that switch claws should be able to be concealed and carried at all times. And that's just what he thinks. I know he had a bunch of magazines, Tina. I know they said he bought several extras. Oh, gotta go to bed. Have a good night, everyone. Thanks, Tony, for coming in. And I hate you have to go. I had another question. I think I had a comment or a question, something you said. Now I can't. I'll have to think about it for a minute. But he only had one. I just believe that he read. Oh, I read that already. Now I'm confused about dogs. I think Bella's down here talking to who? Rhonda. Anyway. Well, I agree, Tina. I mean, honestly, if you're not doing anything wrong, there's no reason why you should have to hide it. I put my Vax card with it, and I need it for. Oh. Well, I keep mine in the safe. Well, actually, I've got my. That's where my passport is. My Vax card's in my wallet. I've thought about locking it up. Brenda's, just to clarify that, Brenda's been wanting to become a Kiwi for a long time. Okay, so he did have a handgun that he shouldn't have had. I didn't know if he did for sure or not. Yeah, Teddy says that dogs carry their claws out in the open. They're not restricted to concealed carry, so he should be able to have his. And I agree, cats should not be declawed. Ah, good, you found it. Excellent, Rhonda. I hope I had said something that helped you find it. I'd like to feel useful once in a while instead of just prattling on. Tina, that's my problem. That's why I put them in the safe now, because now I know that they're in the safe. Because I'm like you, I used to put things in the safe place where we'd find them, and we're still looking for some stuff, and it's been some time now. So Garrett, are you still in here? I know you think about these kinds of things. What's your opinion? How do you think we could start it? How can a conversation be started? Realizing that we probably won't ever, but I have learned in my life to never say never. I thought I would never go back to college and get a degree, and I did. In the actual freaking safe. Well, I have a safe. It's a gun safe technically, but that's where we keep any valuables. And just not to mislead anybody, we don't have many valuables, so it's not got a lot in it in that regard. It's got passports, some old Disney dollars that we've kept for 20 years or 30. Well, that's a good point. You're right, Garrett. We've talked about this some before. I mean, there's a lot going on with children that shouldn't. And I excuse me, and I would have to agree. Kids don't have manners like they used to. They don't respect people like they used to. I don't know how you. I mean, I don't know where in the world we lost the lack of respect for life and death, but some don't seem to have that either. And I don't know, is that a result of video games? Is that a result of, I know that some will say it's maybe a lack of religion. Um, I think if it is that, then it should be from the home, and it's obviously not happening there. Um, I'm not necessarily a church and schools person. I do believe in separation of church and state, but you know, if you, and a lot of these things do have to come from home. Okay, what's Tina saying? I'm sorry, but since the same people who are pro-abortion or anti-gun will never be on the same page. Well, I'd probably beg to differ with you on that a little bit, but I'm not going to go there tonight. I mean, I have mixed feelings about all those subjects, but I try to be as open-minded as I can with them. But that's another topic for another night. I don't want to get too involved in that. But that is, you're right, though, Tina. That is, I will agree here. That is one of those two people tend to be the same, or the groups tend to be, and they're going to be diametrically opposed no matter what you do. Humility, that's another good word that we don't have much of anymore. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I'm trying to figure out why I had that blacked out. Hey, Elena's made it in. Good evening, Elena. Aloha. It's been a long time since we've seen you here, or that I've been able to have you on a chat. Because I'm usually, speaking of diametrically opposed, we're we're on opposite sides of the world, almost. Actually, that's something I never figured out. You're so far away, and yet you're only 6 time zones from us. I've never quite figured that out. I mean, it seems to me like Hawaii ought to be, tomorrow. That's a fat Tina. What are you saying, Brenda? I think she meant fact. But freedom of religion doesn't mean freedom from religion. I think I agree with that, Tina. I mean, it also doesn't mean freedom from freedom of religion. I want to answer that, but I want to answer that correctly. Well, it shouldn't also stop freedom from religion or freedom of no religion, or certainly not freedom of different religions. And that's a discussion that we can't seem to have either, to be honest. Sorry, it's been a while. That thing called. Yeah, well, I realize it's not your fault. It's my fault. Like I said, I live on the other side of the world. So my times don't always. This is the closest thing I've ever done that might meet up with some of your time. And that's by being on late at night, which for some people it's too late. I've lost several people now. I had to go to bed, for example. I'm pretty sure she didn't mean it that way, Tina. I don't know if she. Yeah, okay, she corrected it. Well, I'm not going to go down that. I'm not going to get baited down that path tonight either. But that's a discussion I'd be glad to have any time. We can talk freedom of religion, church and state. We can talk some more about whatever it was we were talking about earlier. Oh, abortion, anti-abortion. But tonight I wanted to vent, I guess, and I wanted to see what anybody else had to say. And like I said, I'm kind of in the middle. I am a guy who was raised as a as a conservative in the church, in my case, Methodist church. I'm not going to get into denominational mumbo jumbo, but that's how it was. But I'm a guy who grew up to be not in that church, and I honestly have my own faith, if you will. But the main thing I know for sure that I believe in is that every human being should have the right to worship as they see fit. They should be able to pray as they want. They should be able to celebrate as they want or don't want, and they shouldn't have to be persecuted for it. And like I said, I don't want to keep going down that path. But that's a discussion I welcome at some later date, though. And in fact, if anybody would like to be involved in that, let me know, and we'll do it. I'm open. I'm always open for suggestions. And again, I don't want to create hostile environments, and I want to try to be as open as I can be to whatever arguments. Let me see what I've missed here. Oh, come here, buddy. What's the matter? Come here. I can't go sit on the couch right now. Come on. Hi, you want to say hi again? Elena's here. I don't think she's seen you lately. You want to show her what a big boy you are now? You want to show off what a big boy you are? I don't know, Elena. I know they put pigs in the ground out there. Did they ever put big cats in the ground? Because he'd probably be a candidate. I might have to protect him if I ever moved to Hawaii. Okay, where am I at here? Out back. Let's see. Back to children suffering. Children have suffered at the hands of evil since the beginning of time. It's not the way or the how, it's the who. Well, yeah, and that's why I'm having this conversation, Tina. I agree. It's not the guns. The guns make it possible. I mean, let's be honest about that part. I mean, an AR-15 or an AK-47 or any number of other weapons that are designed for rapid fire, make these kind of things a lot more possible, more deadly, it runs the numbers up. When I grew up, the most you might have is a shotgun with the plug out, so you might have 5 shotgun rounds, or your dad might have brought home a 45 or a Luger or something from the war, or your granddad, but you didn't see magazines. You didn't see guns with magazines of 30 rounds. Now, I don't blame the gun, and I don't blame the magazine, but I will say that being able to get them easily and readily does facilitate some of the murders and the shootings that we have. It wouldn't be possible for some of these kids and people to go into a schoolroom and kill that many students before they got caught themselves without that. Now, does that mean I'm against them being out there at all? No, it's not. I think people should be able to have them. I do think those people should be checked and background checked and some way spend a little more time making sure that they're all okay. But I don't think they should all be gone. I don't blame the inanimate object. You're absolutely correct. I'm not here to blame the gun. I own guns. I have one laying right here beside me that I was cleaning. And, I don't, that's not the purpose. But the purpose is to take the people on one side of the fence who absolutely detest and hate all those guns and bullets and having them, with the people who think we all should be able to have as many as we want, and figure out some way to talk about how we protect our children. That's really what I want to talk about, is the children. I mean, it's like the numbers I gave you earlier. There's hundreds of thousands of kids now that are growing up who have already been in a war zone. We think about our veterans coming home from Afghanistan or Iraq or Vietnam in my day, and the internal pressures and stress they're going through, and PTSD, and we've got children, 10, 9, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old kids, boys and girls, who just saw the same thing in their classroom 2 days ago. That's what we have to stop. That's what we have to figure out a way to take care of. And that's why I think we've got to start. That's what we've got to start talking about. That's why we have to talk about something being done. Maybe it's getting together on both sides of that fence and teaching people better. But Garrett is also right. A lot of these things have to do with how we look at each other today, what we think of each other today, the fact that we don't respect each other as much as we should, or take care of each other as much as we should. And then we've got to go from there and figure out a way to help stop some of these kind of events. And Elena said my comment is a bit late, but from small kid time, we learn respect and being humble. We also learn to be able to laugh at ourselves. It was also values in our culture. Well, I won't disagree with that, Elena. And Tina says, but if we didn't have guns, there are bombs. Most children killed in the school was 1928. I think it was a bomb. Well, you're probably right, 1928. I'm not sure which bombing that was, but I don't doubt I'm not disagreeing with that either, Tina. There are ways it can happen, and then you have to. But that's, at least in this country, thank goodness, that has been a rare oddity for it to happen in this country. And honestly, it can still happen, but since 9/11, a lot of explosions. When I was growing up, we could go down to the corner hardware store and buy dynamite to clear stumps and make potholes with for waterfowl or whatever. It was very easy to get dynamite. You can't even get close to an explosive now without all the proper paperwork and time. Absolutely, there's many ways to kill. It's not just one way. Tina, that's something I'd like to discuss. You're probably right, and I don't disagree with that. I'd like to get more thoughts on that, but I do think you're right. I mean, people certainly don't. We seem to have lost track of what human life is worth in many other ways. They had people in counties kill a bunch of kids at school with a knife. Are you talking about a particular case, Garrett? Because you say then wounded a lot before he was subdued. Is that a particular case that happened out your way? Well, here I'll tell you. Here's something that happened when I was growing up. While Garrett's collecting his thoughts there. And those are all part of the problem, Tina. They are part of the problem too. The same kind of mental issues or problems may very well cause somebody to do that too, not knowing the circumstances. And I had a thought and I just lost it. Let me go back up here and read this. That's had to do with something Tina said. Now I can't remember what it was. Oh, no, my own life experiences. When I was going to school, I was not in high school yet. In fact, I wasn't even in middle school, or what is now middle school. What we call junior high actually was 7th and 8th grade, and then in 9th grade maybe, and then we went into high school. But that was just where I lived. But so I was probably in 5th or 6th grade maybe, and one of my dad's friends that he worked with, his son got shot and killed in his front yard one night by another fellow student over a girl. I mean, they both went to the same high school, which I attended later, and I don't know for sure the particulars today but it was over a girl. Pretty sure it was. It could have even been a car, but he was shot and killed. Now that was a kind of a school related shit, and they didn't live 200 yards from the school, if that. And of course, it made all the local news, but you didn't hear it everywhere like today, because news gets out everybody has cable and news spreads, and then everybody's got a computer can get on the bandwagon real quick, and we all know there's not a lot of filters there. So, but that happened, and then later, when I was in 7th or 8th grade and going to the high school, two guys got in a fight out in the smoking area, and yes, we used to have smoking areas when I was in high school. And they got in a fight, and one guy cut the other guy's throat, or cut him with a box opener. So yeah, there's all kinds of tools and all kinds of weapons. Pretty much anything man can pick up and use his hands with can be a weapon. You want to come up here? You want to come up here and say hi to Elena? Say aloha. You want to say aloha? Come here. Oh, say hi, Elena. Now, why don't you sit here and just behave for a few minutes, okay? And Tina says, well, I think of something and forget what I wanted to say about it. Yeah, I have to be careful about that, Tina, because sometimes if I don't say it real quick, it goes out the other ear or something. And what did Elena say? I agree. It's not the gun weapon. Yeah, and I do agree with that. That's why I've never been one to say it's the guns, but I do also believe that there may be laws on the books that we're not pursuing as well as we could, that might prevent some of these shootings or some of these guns getting in the hands of the wrong people. Again, I will say this: you can wield a knife or a hatchet or a rock and kill kids in school, but you're not going to get near as many as you would if you've got an AR-15 with 100 rounds of ammo. That I think is the difference. So, and again, I'm not just blaming the AR. I'm just saying I think there should be some restrictions on them. I think that if you pass the criteria and you pay for the license and you can pass the test or checks to be a serious shooter, hunter / collector of those, that you should be able to have them. I just don't know that we should be selling them to 18-year-olds the day after his birthday. He always looks comfy, Elena, because he is. He can get comfortable just about easier than any cat I've ever seen. We always joke about cats sleep 20 out of 24 hours a day. Well, this boy makes the best of it, don't you? Don't you? I could tell sort of a funny story. It's getting to that time of night. When I'm on the computer, he sits right here. He has his own chair, and he doesn't like anybody else to sit with it in it. But when he gets ready to get up, he likes for me to sit on the couch or lay on the couch, because then he can lay on me, and he'll start whining around my chair, meowing, and he's got the most pitiful meow you've ever heard for a cat this size. I mean, he's begging, and he'll go over to the couch and he'll come back. He'll circle until I agree to go sit on the couch. And then if I throw my phone over to the couch and my remote control for the TV, he runs over and hops up and waits on me to get over there. And he likes to, I make him lay on a pillow, even when he's laying on me, because he's so dang heavy. His feet feel like they're going to go all the way through me. Okay, I need to get some. Anyway, the bottom line is, nationwide, there remains more lives saved by a good person with a gun, far more than are killed by a bad guy with a gun. I don't know. I'm not sure that's not true, Tina. In fact, I'd like to say that is probably true. Um, yeah, I'd probably say that's true. And sometimes you wonder where the guy is when these kind of things happen in a Walmart or a Kmart. You have to wonder sometimes, where is that good person with the gun? Where are they at to make a difference? And it says a lot about our society that people feel like they might need to. A couple of years ago, and I don't remember what church it was. There was a man broke into a church, and I don't remember what denomination or anything, but he started shooting people or threatening to shoot people. I think he did shoot somebody, and two men in the church were there carrying, and it was I think it was sort of an unspoken thing that there were some men in the church carrying, because this was after several other church shootings, and they took him down because there they were sitting in church with a 9mm on their hip or under their jacket coat, and they stopped the guy. And it's a shame that they even felt like they needed one. More of a shame that they had to use it, but they did use it, and they may very well have saved some lives. Let's see what this is. Tina says, but if there were people in the school trained and willing, concealed carry and take signs off the door saying gun-free zone, over 90% of murders occur in gun-free zones. I'd like to see that stat on that number, but I'm not disagreeing with you, Tina. I'm sure there is some truth in that. That's the only reason why you can't carry in just about everything here. You can't carry a gun here in a courthouse, which makes sense. I don't know if they check them or if you just don't show up with it. And then there's places like schools and doctors' offices that usually have no guns allowed signs. Elena says, wonder why they can't be stricter with who can obtain guns. Perhaps some database that would flag those who shouldn't be able to have them. That's one of the things they've been trying to talk about for ages. And it's one of those things that's another one of those things that just doesn't seem to be able to get any traction. And again, part of that's because some people don't want them to say that about anybody for fear they'll say it about them, and some people because they just don't think that's enough. But I do think some of that would go a long way. And Tina, this is not to argue your point, but this is just a comment. There are a lot of countries in this world that are far less civilized than we're supposed to be, far less educated, far less a lot of things. And in those countries, sometimes there's civil war. Sometimes they have lots of weapons around. Sometimes they have primitive weapons around. But the thing you don't really hear about or see are large school shootings in those places. I think is that because everybody's carrying a gun and I used to be said about, I think it's Switzerland. Everybody in Switzerland has to go through some firearms training, and it could be Sweden, but anyway, they were basically required to have a issued weapon behind the door of their house, so they could be called up if they ever needed them, to ward off invading enemies. But that very fact that they're all armed and all trained on how to use them probably did stem a lot of bad actors. And I think, Tina, I agree. And I think that's something we need to figure out a way to rectify. I think there should be a way to put certain information in that database, maybe not totally expose the information, but figure out some way to code it or something so that it would flag without exposing all the particulars. There ought to be a way to put a number in somebody's check and say this guy's nutcakes without going into details about what all he's done or what he's what he might do or anything like that, but they ought to be able to put some kind of a warning in there. Do I think that would be abused? Probably, but would it be worth it? Maybe. Good chance it would. There's got to be a way to do that without exposing someone's rights to not be exposed. I mean, God, you got to draw. I mean, where do you draw that line? That's why this is so tough in a free country. You know, you want to protect people's rights and protect their that information. I mean, that's what HIPAA's about, the reason they did it. But at the same time, if that information could be used in a way for good, it sounds like a Marvel comic here, then there should be some way to do that. I know HIPAA does. I know Tina. That's what I'm saying. HIPAA does, but there's got, at least I think it does. I mean, some HIPAA things are misinterpreted by everybody. I mean, me especially. But there should be some way, some law. There should be a way to work that out so that it can be done without exposing the details. And don't you think? I mean, everybody. Wow, how much? How do I say that? I don't know. There's got to be a way. I've got to think on that. But there should be some way that it could be flagged without revealing all the details. Yes, they can. And I don't know if I mean, and again, I'm not sure that's a good thing either. I do believe we're a very sue happy country, society, more than anywhere else in the world. And I think there are times when lawsuits have proven a good thing. I think they've shut down some really bad stuff over the years, but I think they also just cause a lot of extra money. Not to go down that path too far, but just to make a point, I was in the airplane business, most of you know, for a long time. That's basically insurance and lawsuits are basically what killed the general aviation industrial. Oh, what's the right word here, Tim? Come on, think. Industry, because of they could everything you put on an airplane could be sued over, and every time there was a crash, every part on the airplane somebody may get sued over, and people that made parts on the airplane that absolutely had nothing to do with the crash got sued, and it cost them millions of dollars just to not have to go to court for something they didn't even do, and it put a lot of them out of business. Yeah, send me if you have a link, Rhonda. I could make you here. Let me fix that real quick. No, maybe I can't do that. How do I do that? Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I need to do that over here. Hang on, Rhonda. You can now. It was also revealed that he was bullied in school, and I know what a cutter is. Oh, cutting line in school. Yeah, Brenda used to work in the lunchroom. She knows about that. This kid in Texas was considered to be mentally ill. This kid in Texas was considered to be mentally ill. He was a cutter. Oh, I know what that kind of cutter. Yes, I know what a cutter is. I didn't know that, but I knew he cut his face. They interviewed someone who knew him, and she said that he had cut his face and left two big scars, and he thought it was really cool. You're welcome, Rhonda, and thank you. I know what you mean now, Tina. I caught up. I was behind on the chat, and I do know what you mean. HIPAA has clauses for things like public good, along with many others. It doesn't cover as much as people think it does. You know, I think you're probably right, Rhonda, but I think what happens a lot of times is it covers enough that people don't want to fool with it. I think they don't dig deep enough to look and see what it might not cover. No, Brenda, you're not going to call it a night yet. No, you can't go to bed yet. Oh, everybody else is going to let you go tonight. Oh well, I guess sooner or later I'll have to shut down. It is 11:30. Okay, let me figure that out. Anyone can be sued, but there is the actual HIPAA law. Okay. They have insurance for the lawyers. They rarely pay them out of pocket. Yeah, but somebody's paying, Rhonda. And I mean, eventually it does. What goes around eventually does get around. Well, I sure hope it does, Brenda. I hope you're right about that. I didn't know you were a soothsayer, but it's a nationwide FBI search. Okay, I'm behind. I think so, Elena. I believe they do. I just did. I'm not sure how deep they go or what it covers. I bought my first handgun when I was 20 something, and I bought one to take hunting, and I was interested in long range hunt or target shooting. So I bought a gun specifically designed that would do both. It would hunt. I could hunt deer with, and was good for long range target shooting and a large enough caliber to do so. I had to wait 2 weeks. I bought that gun, applied for the permit, not permit, to buy it, to be allowed to buy it, register it, whatever you want to call it. And I had to wait 2 weeks to get it back. Now, in my case, in that part of Tennessee at that time, it might not always take 2 weeks, but it was supposed to take 2 weeks. That doesn't happen. I can walk into a sporting goods store, purchase a gun, go look at baseball mitts for a little while, and they can run that permit through supposedly the FBI system and clear me or tell me I can't buy it. And that you would think, but that's for handguns here. Now, every state doesn't do long guns, or every state doesn't do ammunition. I believe if Garrett's listening, he could tell us that in California, you pretty much have to be cleared to buy all those things, and they're all registered. Tina might be able to tell us whether you can do any of that in New York or not. And I really wish Mike Cabral had been able to stay in, because I wanted to ask him how they handle some of that in Canada, because they have, on one hand, stricter laws than we do. But I think they can still have long guns and shotguns. They just can't have any handguns. And I'd like to know how those are handled. Tina says, we have a permit system here. A permit system here that took over 6 months to get a permit, and you can't get a gun after you have a permit. Do you know, Tina, if that permit allows you to carry, or is that just a permit to own? Because that's a pretty long wait. And Garrett says I can tell you there's probably isn't any way to do background checks and know about pre-crime. Do you mean crime before it happens? Is that what you're calling pre-crime? Because, yeah, you're probably right there. But you might have some idea. I mean, if you know a kid's been torturing animals all his life and mean to his sister, you might have a clue. Elena says, here being paradise, or otherwise known as Hawaii, I think they also have to affirm to an affidavit of mental health. And I like that idea. They have to authorize release of medical information. If you did that in writing, that might clear the way to do some other things. I have filled out paperwork. I don't know if this is still the case, but I have filled out paperwork where you did have questions about mental health and drug use. Although it was often said, well, you can always lie on that paperwork, but not if they follow up with a background check. Okay, it's kind of a stupid question. Are you crazy? Check yes or no. Yes, Garrett, that's what I was getting at. There's those kind of questions on the thing, and who's going to say no? Or have you ever committed a felony? Yes or no? Well, no. Do you have a restraining order against you? Check yes or no. And you're right. And I've always thought that was pretty asinine or stupid. You can get a shotgun with only 2 rounds. All other guns fall under the permit to own concealed carry, but you can't carry it other than to the range or to hunt or leave it home. And Rhonda says records are sealed at 18 anyway, so a background check won't find things. That's true. I don't know how that works. I mean, that's what I've always heard too, Rhonda, and I don't know if there's a way to make anything available there or not. Once you become an adult, and that's a good point. DNR is required to release info pertinent to person obtaining a firearm. Doctor. And then Garrett follows up with, and if you haven't committed a crime, like maybe 18-year-old or 21-year-old could still be highly unstable and get a gun. Yeah, you could. And everybody that's out there buying hasn't been to see a doctor about his mental illness or her mental illness, or a counselor or a psychologist or psychiatrist or whatever the one you go see. And they're not going to catch those either. And I don't know a way you could unless you send them through some kind of psych eval. So you're not going to catch everything that way, but maybe you would get. But I tell you what, I do think. I think if there is a way to do that, you might catch more than you think, because most of the people who end up committing these kind of crimes have some prior record of violence towards somebody, towards themselves, towards other people, towards animals. So a lot of them might fall in and be stopped early enough to do something. So to be honest, I'm not sure there is a good way to do a good background check. Well, that's probably why they don't have one, Garrett. I mean, I'm sure that's one of the excuses, and I'm not sure you're not. I think you're at least partially right, and maybe you're mostly right. On a percentage scale, I'm not going to put a number on it, but you're probably there's a lot of truth in that. It would be very difficult. But again, this goes back to sitting down at the table and trying to figure out what could we talk about, what would help, golly. This is the part that frustrates me so much, is we won't even do that. Maybe there's not a good answer for a lot of these questions, but why don't we at least sit down at the table and try to figure that out? We can't just sit back behind our different battle lines and just say, oh, that won't work. There's no way to do that. We got to figure out a way to do that. And the other side can't just sit back and say all guns are evil, and that's why these kids are dying, because they've got an evil black rifle, because that's not true either. And Brenda probably did go on to bed, even though I forbade her. And you guys heard me forbid her to go to bed. She's been watching The Handmaid's Tale lately, so she's getting a little bit rowdy anyway. Uh-oh, I moved my monitor too far away and didn't notice the letter changed. Uh-oh, I missed something. Okay, I just noticed autocorrect is changing everything to hippo. Well, I tell you what, how much attention I've been paying, Rhonda. I've been reading it as hippo all along, so powers of suggestion, I guess. Anybody besides me drinking coffee still? I can't move my monitor too far away because right now it's focused. Elena says, oops, I don't think there's a foolproof way in terms of laws, but it's probably better than making it too easy. However, it doesn't beat having a good foundation on just being a good person. And that's, you know what? Elena and Garrett, that's probably the bottom line. When you get right down to it, that's probably the bottom line, is that none of that beats having a good foundation and just being a good person. We've talked about, Garrett and I have had some long conversations about some of that, and it is, we are raising kids today, maybe myself, but there is a whole generation of kids out there who don't seem to respect other people. It's all about me. The me generation, they said that was years ago, and I lived through it, but I don't think it's ever been stronger than it is today. And I do wonder sometimes if whatever you want to call them, first person shooter digital games have something to do with some of this or not. I mean, there seems to be a lack of respect for life in general and killing people. Because I know that this is probably preposterous, and one of you will probably call me on it, but growing up, I can't imagine this happening. I mean, I couldn't imagine anybody doing it, much less myself, for example. But I mean, I don't know how. And back to one more thing before I forget, because I will, about Elena's comment about the foolproof. No, not a good foolproof way to do things by the. And that's why I say it's not. It may not be about making more laws. It may be about looking at ones we have and figuring out better ways to enforce them. And maybe we ought to put them all on the table and sort through some of them and see which ones really don't make sense and which ones do, because there are a lot of gun laws out there that just really don't make any sense. I'll give you one. This is Canada, but I can talk about it in a moment. Canada, you're not allowed to have handguns. I don't know who can have one, who can't, but by and large, you cannot have handguns. And after World War II, it wasn't that way during World War II, and a lot of soldiers brought back handguns from the war. Canadian military issue, German issue, French issue, whatever. They came back with handguns. At some point, the laws were changed where you couldn't have them, but the only way you could legally keep one of those guns is if you filled out the paperwork at that time, and there was a date and a period when you could do this, a grace period, and you could sign it up basically and register it, and then you could keep it, and your family could keep it, and you could pass it down and that sort of thing. But if you did not do that, and now it's found out, you have to turn it in, and you can't pass it down, you can't do anything. It has to be turned in and destroyed, and not just sold off to somebody else. It has to be destroyed. That's the law. And if you think about that a little bit, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I mean, if you did something back in 1958 or whenever the law was passed versus now, you can keep your gun, but if you didn't, you got to destroy it. Why can't you just register it now? I mean, I'm sure there were people who didn't even realize they had to do that at that time and it didn't get done. Anyway, I think that's kind of an asinine thing. Now, that's outside our purview. That's outside of this country. But it is how sometimes really not too bright. Hatbox Ghost is in. We got a new visitor, guys. The Hatbox Ghost is here. Let me see here. I've lost. While I'm running at the mouth here, I've missed a lot. Why are AR-15 seemingly the gun of choice in these situations? Change for smaller change, we all can help make a difference in a few people, which is still pretty cool. And I do agree there, Garrett. I think we all can make a change. Okay, time for me to pumpkin out. Oh, Rhonda, I hate to see you go, but I understand. I'm gonna let everybody pumpkin out. So me either is bringing guns and knife school all the time. We never thought twice about it. And have a good night, Rhonda. Garrett says, and I will stream tomorrow from MomoCon at some point. Okay, tell me what MomoCon is, because I don't know that one. Before you leave. And Elena says, I don't know. You might think differently if you were on our roads. Okay, crazy people. I'm not sure about that. I missed enough. Where did the Hatbox Ghost comment go? Or did it get punted? Hatbox Ghost. An AR-15 are only for killing people. I'm all for everyone to have their handguns, rifles, shotguns, but I would like to make semi-automatic weapons like the AR-15 against the law to have. And that's an argument that we've been kicking around, Hatbox Ghost. Yes, they are fun. You're right, Elaine. If you like to shoot, they are fun to shoot. And that's where I think, and there's what in the world with Russ. Howdy, Russ. Welcome in. Well, take you a swig of coffee, Rhonda. Fours like that too. What? Okay, we're saying hi to folks. Aloha, Russ. What in the world with Russ? Hi there. Hey there, Hatbox Ghost. Hatbox Ghost. Aloha, Elena. I'm trying to keep up now. Now I need, like my wife sitting here helping me answer chat. It started out as an anime convention, but now it's basically a pre-con for Dragon Con. What? See, now I don't know what that means. Now I got to understand what a pre-con is. And Dragon Con, I assume, is like a fantasy dragons and warriors kind of thing, or Dungeons and Dragons kind of convention. So it'd be a pre-convention before that convention. So it's like a pre-convention. Can there be pre-conventions? This is probably way over my head. It's a shame. A kid, 18 years old, a high school dropout, can't even drink a beer, but he can buy an AR-15. And I've said that same thing today. Earlier today, I had that same thought or told somebody that because that's, when I was growing up, I could have a beer at 18. It was legal, at least in most states, and it was here. I could go to war and I could kill my fellow man, or at least the North Korean or North Vietnamese version of it, and he could kill me, but we couldn't do other things like smoke. Well, technically smoke in some states. Now you can still do some of those things, but you can't drink. But yet you can go buy an AR-15. That's I really think that should be bumped up, but I think there should be a waiting period for something like that, especially when an 18-year-old goes in and buys two in a week's time. There ought to be a buffer there that says, "Oh, wait a minute, what are you up to?" Because if this had happened 2 weeks later, if he'd only had to wait 2 weeks to pick these up, they'd all been gone. School would have been out, and because they only had a few days left, and that day was an awards day, and there wouldn't have been anybody there for him to shoot. I think this is a great time to discuss mental health instead of it just line up all the guns. I completely agree with gun safety. I've trained people how to, but some people don't need access. Yeah, and we've kicked that around, Russ. Maybe you've been in the background ninja watching or listening, but that's been one of the topics of discussion tonight is trying to lock up all the guns is probably never going to work. I mean, there's too many of them really ingrained in the American culture, and three, you're just never going to get them all. So that was my point of this discussion, and I was trying to think what else do you do? And talking about it is the first step. And Tina says he can also join the military, though. Yeah, I personally think that if he can go to war, he can drink and buy a gun. Although in this case, he also should learn how to use it. Well, yeah. Well, I that's where I think in this case there should have been a waiting period. I really do. And I think if maybe that could have cooled things down. Chances are he would have found a way to shoot somebody else. Unfortunately, and I hate to say that, but maybe it wouldn't have been a bunch of kids in an elementary school. Maybe they would have been gone for the summer. I'm going to send the call. They are all family friendly. Okay. That's cool, Rhonda. You do that. Did you get to post the other link you were wanting to post earlier? Because I didn't. I wasn't looking. I'll go back and find it. I'll look through chat later. Anyway, if you didn't, by all means do it, or send it to me if you don't want to, and I'll put it in. Oh, you did. Okay, good. Are you still going to bed? You said you were going to pumpkin out. I've been up. It's almost 2 hours. I probably ought to get off. Who knows? Maybe Garrett wants to get on late tonight, and maybe he'll continue some of this thought process. Although I will not promise to be there, Garrett, because my time, that's going to be pretty early in the morning. Once the police in that town knew there was a shooting, the grandma, there was some time before he got to the school. Let me put that up. Once the police in that town knew there was a shooting the grandma, there was some time before they got to the school. Many schools automatically lock doors down on any shooting nearby. Yeah, and that could have helped too. I mean, some schools just shut the doors after the day starts, period. I used to go to elementary schools here and teach classes or talk about environmental stuff. And we had to always go through a door everything else was locked, and we had to go through a door through the office, and there were doors past that. And we couldn't get through them. And I think, I don't know in this case. I don't know if he went in a back door that obviously wasn't locked. Maybe it was a door that the janitor went in and out to go to the dumpster, or maybe it was in the back of the kitchen and they had been carrying stuff in and out. Well, as long as we can distract you long enough to stay, Rhonda. And Russ says the stigma about mental health is totally skewed. If someone who followed him on social media just spoke up, then maybe someone could have talked to me. Yeah. Well, and the sad part about that, Russ, is that there may very well be several people out there that he told exactly what he was going to do, and they didn't say a word. Now, I don't know how much of that they can prove, but they did find the conversations he was having with other people in a group, I guess a group about killing and that sort of thing. And somehow that got through and nobody said a word. And honestly, I think if that is true and they could prove that and know who those gentlemen are, and I'm going to bet they were all gentlemen, and I use that term very loosely, that they shouldn't get off scot-free. The doors were not locked there, Tina. Okay. Well, see, I'm not saying that's the reason. It's still not their fault it happened, but I think they probably should have been locked. Like I said, that's what most of the schools around here do. As soon as school starts, the doors are locked. You got one way in, one way out. I'm not saying you still couldn't get into school. I mean, honestly, if I was going into the school just to start shooting people, I'd just blast the windows out in the door. But there's still ways to get in, but anything that slows a shooter down, it's going to help more people, more kids in this case, get away. Yes, he posted on social media and told his grandmother before he shot her in the face. Yeah, as far as I know, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, as far as I know, she did not die. She did not pass away. She is still alive, I think, and I'm kind of curious to what she might have to say when she's able to. That bothers me the most about this. No armed guard and unlocked door. I didn't know what kind of guard situation they had. I think some of the guards here might be armed, but I'm not positive about that. I know there's not always even anybody around. Senator Cruz wants to lock the doors and have an armed security guard at the front door at schools. Fine. What about shootings at churches, shopping centers? Well, that's part of this conversation too. We're talking about kids at school because that's what's got me really disturbed, but that's not what started this. To me, that's not what started the school shooting last week at the grocery store. The fact that he already had paperwork in his car, his manifesto, if you will, that said if he got away, he was going to go down the street and keep shooting people. The Walmart shooting in El Paso 2 years ago came to that place to shoot people of color. In that case, I think Mexicans he was after, or immigrants. And this one, he drove 2 hours so he could be in an all black, more black area to shoot people. Or if he just goes downtown to start shooting up a church, no matter what color they are. No, that doesn't. None of that fixes that. The only way to fix that is to try to get. But those aren't always AR-15s either. Okay, she's going to be okay. And then Russ says, I don't think that school should be like prison. No, it shouldn't. And kids shouldn't be afraid to go to school. I agree 100%, but you can't tell me that there aren't kids afraid to go to school. The world is too scary and gets scarier all the time. It does. And that's my point. We've got all these kids now who may be afraid to leave the house or go to school for many years to come. And I can't say I blame them. It may be totally irrational that it would ever happen again. And that's not really a good excuse. And it may be, but I believe that these kids are going to be traumatized for a long time to come. I think there's 500,000 school kids out there that have been involved in school shootings since Columbine happened or thereabouts. And I think they all go to bed at night, and who knows when it pops up or they think about it. And I think that's terrible. And the bottom line is evil is evil. We need to stop mitigating the inanimate objects and start fighting against the evil. And I guess, Tina, I'm going to have to agree with you. Not have to. I don't have a problem agreeing with you. If we agree, we agree. You're right. And that's kind of what I've been trying to say. There's got to be a way to sit down and talk without just blaming the gun or just blaming a gun or a pistol or even an AR-15. There's more to it. And maybe it's not gun checks. Maybe it's not. I don't know the answer. But I know that if we don't sit down and talk about it, if the gun lobby and the people supporting the gun lobby don't sit down with some people from the other side, and maybe some people that maybe like me that are in the middle, we don't sit down and talk about this thing, we're never going to come up with any kind of usable answer that's going to make a difference. But it's damn time we did. I'm telling you, like I said earlier, if you weren't here earlier, I made this comment, and I'll say it again. How did I put it? Oh my God. Damn. Oh, what was I saying? What was I just preaching about? Evil. Oh no, what did I say? That's what I get from ranting. It'll pop back in just in a second. Let me think on it, but keep talking. And the value of life has been marginalized, Tina, and I'm not sure where that happened. I think that's another thing that needs to be taught in the home. I think a lot of that does need to be taught in the home, and I'm not just dumping all this blame on parents. There are a lot of parents with a lot of problems and a lot of issues, and it makes it really tough to raise kids, and I don't disagree with that. That may sound like an excuse for a lot of people, and I know some people will say that's just an excuse, and I don't agree with that, but that it's just an excuse, because I think there are a lot of legitimate reasons why these things happen. I mean, why people struggle with raising their kids or teaching their kids. And again, that's probably a conversation for another night, but I think all that goes into the fact that life has been marginalized. Life is not as looked upon as sacred or as important as it should be. I don't know. Maybe we see life as a digital war game, and poof, you pop up in a red mist, and it's over, and you move on. And in that scenario, nobody's hurt. Nobody, it didn't affect the shooter. It didn't really affect anybody else. Or you get shot, and you wait 5 minutes, and poof, you can pop back up. And I don't know, but something has changed. And a long time ago I used to say we still need Superman, and we still need the Lone Ranger. When I grew up, Superman caught villains and he didn't always kill them. The Lone Ranger shot guys in the arm or in the leg, or shot his pistol out of his hand. He didn't kill them. And maybe they went to prison. Maybe they were hung for rustling cattle. Who knows down the road? But it wasn't all about killing. Then we changed TV, and the movies changed to where it wasn't realistic enough. So we had to make it more real, and blood started flowing and splattering, and people died in front of us, and it just went on and on. And I think all that has also played some role in this. I think it all made it seem more normal, desensitized us maybe. And again, I'm not blaming it all on that, but I do believe all these things go into the mix. And the Hatbox Ghost says most mass shootings have semi-automatic guns with dozens of rounds in them. Get rid of the guns with those large number of rounds, the deaths go down. New Zealand got rid of them. Things got way better. Yeah, I know, and I do respect New Zealand's prime minister and the way they do handle most things, but I don't know that direct would ever work here. Again, the gun culture is really deep in this country, and I believe in some of it too. I just think I just believe we should be able to sit down and talk about it. I mean, that's the bottom line. We have to learn to take care of each other instead of just blaming or looking at punishment or turning a blind eye to those in need. The kid who did this was hurting, an 18-year-old kid, just sad. And it is very sad. And while it's very easy to blame him, blame his mother, I don't know anything. All I've heard about in this regard, family-wise, is a grandfather and a grandmother who he shot. Don't know anything about his parents, if he had a father, if his mother was still alive. You never know about these things anymore. And I mean, who knows? Maybe one of his parents died in a violent fashion, and it stuck with him all these years. I don't know. I suspect some of that will come out in the long run in the future. But it is sad. And that is really the message here. I'm sad. It makes me sad every time I hear about one of these shootings. It makes me sad. The saddest of all are the school kids, and these were young little kids. I mean, Sandy Hook was little kids. This is little kids. I mean, they're not even high school age. Not that that's good. That's bad too. But these are little kids who, I'm going to say, are innocent and would never dream of this in their lives. And now they're going to go to school next year as third graders or fourth graders or fifth graders. And this is going to be in their back of their minds. And I'm going to tell you something. I don't believe that just goes away. That easy to get shed of. I don't think it just disappears. I think it's stuck with them. But I do think there's a way to talk about this and work through some of this stuff. There's got to be a way. And the Hatbox Ghost says, my last comment, I agree both political sides just need to talk about what changed to make sense, but as long as AR-15s are available, the more radical people are going to get them. I can't disagree with that, because you're right, they do have them. I just keep remembering what's happening in China. No guns allowed. What happened in Australia? No guns allowed. The first law of tyranny. Is taking away the ability to defend yourself. Yeah, I know that, Tina, but honestly, I don't think that's going to happen here. I don't know if that could happen here, but then again, I never thought we'd march on the Capitol either. Not allowing the peasantry and kind of have weapons. That's why a lot of martial arts developed. They were using non-typical weapons. Nunchucks were used on wheat, to chaff wheat. And, Poles were used for a lot of other things, and they learned how to fight with them because that's all they had. And Australia was kind of different. I mean, geez, you started out with a penal colony and went from there. So I don't know. I think, and honestly do believe in this country, and it's never going to happen. And if it happens here, it's going to be way down the road. But I do tell you what, I think these kids are going to grow up and they're going to remember this. And when they're in office and they're the politicians in charge and they're the voters, I think that people like the NRA and the people that won't talk about it now, that refuse to come to the table, I think they're going to regret this because those kids are going to remember this. And I do believe that. Thank you, Hatbox Ghost, for coming in. I don't totally disagree with your opinion. I think it's worth talking about. So I would like to ask you to come back again. Who knows what the conversation will be next time. And I would invite you to, if you have more to say or want to talk about, by all means, contact me on IG, Instagram. I have email there, and I'd be more than happy to talk about it. And again, thanks for coming by, and have a great evening and a good tomorrow, and hope to see you again. And I mean that sincerely. And that goes for anybody in the room. We might not agree on everything, but I'm hell bent to try to figure out a way we can talk to each other. I'm tired of this country not being able to talk to each other. I'm tired of going downtown to a restaurant and sitting at a table where I'm afraid to say something because it might tick off the guy behind me because his political thoughts go a whole different. Well, hey, Dave, good to see you. Afraid you got here just about in time to go to bed. That's interesting, Elena. That is interesting. They could, Tina. They could. But what I've seen so far, I don't see that yet because most of the ones that are older now are pretty vehemently anti. And I may or may not agree with some of the things they say, but I think the day will come when they're in charge, and I think we'll see then. Some of us won't be here, but some of us will. And Elena, let me back up. See what Elena said. Yes. And Dave, I'm glad to see you. I hope you're doing well. I think you were you at the parks tonight? Did I see that? Yes, Russ, it's absolutely. That is I do agree with that. I'm not sure how we're going to get there. Some of the issues we seem so diametrically opposed on are tough issues. I think the bottom line is some of these things we just have to learn to accept as, you believe this and you therefore do this and you don't. And we live together and we talk to each other, we communicate, but we don't have to force our views on everybody. That's one of the things we have a hard time doing. Oh, you were at Universal. Okay. I know I saw something about fireworks, but I couldn't remember where you were. And was that in Orlando? And Russ, I'd give you a gold star for that. And that is a good comment. And that's kind of how I feel about it. I mean, I don't, there's a lot of people I don't agree with. There's a lot of people I don't agree with politically that I love to death and think the world of until we get down to those topics and we have to agree not to agree or agree not to talk about it because I'm blaming myself for that too because I'm just as vehemently about them as they are in many cases. But I'm trying to change. I'm trying to be not necessarily can be converted in any way, but to accept that things have to be different. Some things are going to be different, and we have to figure out how to make those things work within the confines of this nation, or this nation won't survive it, or it's going to have some drastic changes. Let's see what Tina said here. Yes, I just wish people start remembering when you point a finger at someone else, you're pointing 3 back at yourself. Well, that's a good point, Tina. Okay, folks, it's after midnight, and this is not one of Garrett's all-night streams, so I'm going to call it a night, and he disappeared on me. I think he left. He must not have liked what we were saying. Let's see if that brings him out of the woodwork. I agree with him. I think people need to learn how to communicate. I think people need to learn how to communicate with each other respectfully. Not agreeing is not a negative thing, but a way to learn and come up with something better. I agree, Elena. It's hard to get that across. It's hard to make converts of that thought. It seems like that's part of the problem. I'm adamant about my opinions. We've lost the ability to debate respectfully. Yes, we have. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that, reasons I will not go into. Oh, yeah, oxen free. Somebody yell Marco and see if he answers back Polo. Brenda had the funniest cartoon she showed me the other day. It was a bat. I talked about bats last Saturday on my show, and she had a cartoon of a bat and a moth flying along, low to the ground, and a bat overhead doing echolocation, and the bat yelled Marco, and the moth said Polo, and then the next frame is like, dang it, rats. It knew right then it was had because it shouldn't have spoken up. Well, I'm going to give Garrett a minute to see if he says anything, but I think we've lost him. I'd love to call him right now if he's eating dinner. I'd call him because he likes to call me at dinner time, and see if he can keep me from eating. Oh, he had to go walk the dog. Okay. Getting any fights while you were out? Well, thank you, Tina. I'm glad you appreciated that. Did you enjoy the part where I showed how? No, that was week before last, where some of the bees were eating spiders. I thought you'd especially like that. I enjoyed discussing the bats. I had a good time with that. Oh, the other dogs must have been put in for the night then, Garrett. And you got back just in time to say good night because I'm getting ready to sign off. I've got to get off this. This muscle is really starting to give me fits. I'm squirming more than I was when this started. And that means I'm hurting a bit. So I'm going to go do that. If it keeps it up, I may have to go downtown and look for something on the street corner to ease the pain. I'm kidding. But if you live with chronic pain, you know what I'm saying. Well, Dave, thanks for coming in. I hate you got here late. You missed most of the conversation, but I told others if you want to talk more about this topic, I'd be willing to do that with anybody. Send me a line, drop me a line, send me a note, text me, Instagram me, and I'll be glad to do that. Russ says something here. Let me read to him. I think it was a good conversation. It's the only way to change things. We have to talk it through. Yes, we do, Russ. And that's why I did it. I wanted to talk it. I wanted to talk about it with people that I knew would probably not all agree, but that I was hoping could sit down and discuss it and start some dialogue. And our dialogue tonight may not go anywhere, but maybe somebody will hear it, and maybe somebody out there will push it further. And maybe somebody out there will push it up to the idea up to a higher level. And maybe sooner or later, some of those people will sit down and actually at least talk about what we could do. Thank you, Dave. It is an important question. Now they have safe spaces where people who disagree with you aren't allowed to go. Well, that's true. And I guess it's good sometimes to have a place you can go, but it's not always. I wish it wasn't necessary. Okay, folks, it's been a good night. I think it's been a healthy show, discussion, although I probably ran my mouth way more and should have read and listened a lot more. And so I'm going to wish everybody a good rest of their evening. And hopefully you'll all have a great Friday. And we're having a weekend coming up. And if I am planning to do my show Saturday morning. I'll be solo. So if anybody wants to join me, send me a text or send me an Instagram note, and I'll send you a link and you can come on with me. I'm going to be solo, and my buddy he's on vacation. He's gone down to New Mexico or West Texas to see his daughter. So he's out having fun, and we'll talk. I don't even know for sure what I'm going to talk about yet. I got a couple of ideas, but I haven't nailed them down. So I'll be busy tomorrow trying to figure some things out. And we'll just go from there. So I hope to see some of you there Saturday morning if you don't already have a lot to do, or if you're not having other plans, or if you were planning on being there and having coffee with us, look forward to seeing you there. So, like Brenda said, take a deep breath. The sun will rise in the morning, even if it's rainy, it's out there. And this weekend's Memorial Day weekend. Remember those who, I agree with Tina's sentiments there. If you have special plans for Memorial Day, be safe. And, this is a day to remember what it's about and who it's for. And I just hope everybody think about what we've talked about. How about the difference between Memorial Day and Veterans Day? Well, that's another topic, Tina. Oh, you mean Saturday? Well, we might do that Saturday. That's a good topic. Let me write that down. If that's what you mean. If it's not what you mean, it might happen anyway. Thank you, Tina. I will write that down. That's a good idea. So that will be, I'll make sure that's on the agenda, Tina. That'll be at least part of Saturday's discussion. In fact, I've got some things we can talk about on how that got started. So, good night, everybody. Elena, have a good supper and a good night. You're probably not dark out there yet. Well, for that matter, California's probably not either. But it is here, so it's about bedtime. Or at least I'm going to say that. And I probably will be pretty soon. It's almost 12:30 here. Thank everybody for staying up. If you got to work tomorrow, thank you even more because I know that's going to be rough. I bet you do, Elena. You'll have to tell us about that some evening. So, anyway, good night, all, and have a great day tomorrow. Take it how you want to, but I love y'all and thank you for being here. And I hope to see you again someday soon. And I hope maybe someday we'll meet and we can discuss some of this stuff face to face without a fight. How about that? Good night.